All right, and welcome to the Rocket Launcher podcast. This is episode 97. I am your host, Supreme King, and we're joined with me, as always, is my co-host, and his name is...
It's your guy Omazes.
Yes, sir. How's everything going with you on your side?
I'm chilling. Just had to get through these game shows today.
I mean, we're like
Oh,
scratching the surface, like quite literally.
uh,
But there was some, it's two shows, so I do want to just go ahead and just break down the agenda for the people out there. So first of all, thank you if you're listening. If you're watching, this is technically a new game for the channel, but this is not new to practically anybody. One of the most popular games out there, Resident Evil 3. So I do have the footage here picking up after Resident Evil 2. I think I just played that right back to back. So you'll see this more regularly. I actually have more saved footage than Bloodborne. Well, of course, because I'm, brand new to Bloodborne right now. But I had this in the background, I guess, just waiting to start posting this once I ran out of Resident Evil 2 footage. But not a new game. If you haven't played it, please go ahead and play it. I mean, it's Resident Evil at its finest, Capcom at its finest. I mean, from the remakes, it's not necessarily one of the top choices of the remakes. I think a lot of people put 2 and 4 before this, obviously. But you can find this for like $10-15 now practically anywhere. So all platforms except the Switch, basically. But play this one, play the original. I don't really have much more I really need to say about Resident Evil. We can get right into it. Although I do get the chance to pick on my co-host real quick. I'm gonna pick on my co-host. Co-host, have you played Resident Evil 7 yet? You promised the people to play Resident Evil 7. Have you played Resident Evil?
You promised them that I would play it. I never said.
All right, we gonna get on them every time I get this footage up. I might actually bring that up. We gonna get on him every now and then. Because he's supposed to play the game. It's like 6 or 7 hours long. He got to get to it before I get to it. You know what I'm saying? If I get to it before him, that's bad. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, agenda on the platform. We have what do we even know what OTK stands for? First of all, the name of this show was OTK Game Expo, but I don't know what OTK stands for. But that was the first gaming show of the gaming shows, and then the next one was Guerrilla Collective, and we're going to talk about both of them, give our highs and our lows and some other stuff, and then afterwards I'm going to recap the schedule of games for anybody, like for the gaming shows, for anybody who's wondering if they want to watch for themselves, because I do encourage everybody to watch and pick out the games that you want for yourself and, support the developers. Say it one more time.
One True King.
Oh, that's the name of it. They never put it on any marketing though. It always said it was OTK.
It was One True King, legally known as OTK Media. So it's the name of the media company.
Okay.
It primarily focuses on online content creation. Previously competed professionally in World of Warcraft.
All right. Well, they had a gaming show. They showed off a few games here and there. So we're gonna talk about their show, and then after that, we're gonna talk about Guerrilla Collectives. And then I'm gonna recap the next shows, and then give you some of the Epic Games free games. I'm gonna remind you of that, as well as a couple other sales and stuff that I saw. And then at the very end, I think I can basically go over the breakdown of the ROG Ally X, which is supposed to be, a much more upgraded version of the ROG Ally. I actually thought that this was going to show up within the PC gaming show because I thought it would make the most sense. But it could actually still show up there for maybe a quick trailer or something. But they released the specs, released all the information on that, so I'm going to go over that in some detail. towards the very end, and then that'll be the show, and we can get up out of here, and everybody can get back to watching these shows with us. Hopefully, you guys out there can get through it as quickly as you can, because I can tell you right now, spoiler alert for the show's schedule, I believe Saturday has like 5 of them, which I thought was really crazy. Like I figure, you could throw a couple on Saturday, but they really put just back-to-back stuff there. And so far what we're seeing from the 2 shows that we've already just watched, it's each one is over an hour, or at the very least, I think one of these was like 2.5 hours. So
one was 2.5, one was like 4.
Like, yeah, that's right. It was 4. And I think I did write that down. And what's crazy is, so Saturday it's supposed to be like 5 extra shows. Like, you're really talking part-time job territory here. Which I don't know why they always do it like that, because you conveyor belt these games and not everything gets to like really get the shine. I think a lot of people probably really want to put their games on the shows, but from the perspective of the consumer, like we've said this plenty of other times when we went through these, like it's too much. It's almost like way too much of a dopamine hit or something. You really need to slow it down a little bit. Like, you can only buy so much. Imagine buying each and every one of these games for all the shows, right? It'll cost you your salary almost. But
yeah.
Anyways, first show, from the very beginning, the opening, I thought it was a little cringe and kind of weird. I just know my notes said big fella singing with the guitar, and I was so thrown off by it. I was just like, I know it's supposed to be like kind of a skit, kind of a joke, but it was just like, okay, it's not really gaming. It's just here's the dude with the guitar. But did you like this guy? Did this guy convince you to buy games on this show?
No, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the guy himself or
Yeah.
the singing. I think my first thought process was, when I knew I had to watch these 2 shows today, I saw that this one was 4 hours long, and then I saw it started with a musical number. And that's all I kept thinking. I was like, this is 4 hours. Why are, just get to the games.
Yeah. It really crazy too, and that's why I also say, for anybody who want to watch shows like this, catch the replays, because they also always start you off with like this 30-minute wait, like
Yep.
or a countdown, which I can understand the countdown to an extent, but it's just like the countdown, and then it's just like this marathon that is not even mostly gaming, which we'll get to. But yeah, big fella with the guitar, kind of funny. I think that went a little too long. I didn't need a full music video from him, but yeah, they did that. But I will say, for me, the first game that I did like, funny enough, didn't actually come from the show itself. It looks like it was the last thing, or one of the last things from their little pre-show thing right before it. And it was just called Elsie. It kind of looked like a Mega Man-ish type game. It's a little bit more fast-paced. I'm big on the 2D fast-paced games, the indie games right now. Those are the games I like to wish list and play. And that was one of them. Slightly before the actual show started, before Big Fella came on the screen. I don't know, but did you see that game, or did you start off right after that?
I started off right after.
All right, so yeah, you may have missed it, but the thing is, it actually showed up again under Guerrilla Collective, and I wrote it down a second time because of that. Under Guerrilla Collective, what we'll get to in a second, it was like late in that show, but it was actually a part of the show. Now I got to tell you, under the OTK Gaming Expo, that Elsie game was one of 2 games that I actually wrote down that I liked. I really only got 2 games on here, to be honest with you.
I got a few.
But yeah, go ahead, give me like two more of yours, and then I'll do my last one.
So I liked Athenian Rhapsody. One of the first games they showed. It was like a make your own adventure sort of game. So you're like traveling, fighting some stuff, and then you get all these choices, and what you choose determines what happens. And it's like multiple game through, or you're supposed to do multiple playthroughs because
Okay.
each time it'll be different. Uh, so that just seemed like a fun like little game to play.
Okay.
Another one. So I thought World's Worst Handyman seemed pretty funny. It was like a little stealth game where you're kind of running around doing stuff like you're a handyman, but you're like breaking a lot of things as you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to solve puzzles, but also avoid like clients, like disgruntled clients trying to hurt you.
Okay. For those games that you wish list, I don't know if I didn't really mention it before because I started to get a bigger list. But did you catch or did you try to see whether or not any of them were like multi-plat or
I wasn't
um
looking, but I think a good chunk of them were.
yeah, because I think almost everything that was shown here I think is on Steam though.
Yes.
Um, Especially with Guerrilla Collective, they showed Steam more than they showed everything else, but a good chunk of that was still multi-plat with a
So
few
it looks like
successions.
Athenian Rhapsody is on everything,
Yeah,
including Switch, and World Wars Handyman is Steam only.
yeah. I think a big push in these earlier shows right now is going to be Steam, which for a lot of people, if you just don't have a PC yet, like I said before, it's good to still create a profile and wishlist games and add free games like on Epic Games. And then when you do get a machine, whether it's a gigantic tower or a little handheld, you have a list of stuff that you can go buy and then you can catch sales on stuff and then you start playing stuff. So I would definitely say, still create your profiles, but yeah, the next game I have, which is actually the last one from this show, before I start ranting it. Well, I'm not gonna rant. It's not that bad, but um, I don't want to butcher this name, but I believe it was Akatori.
Yep.
Did I say it
Akatori.
right? Did you write
Yep.
that down too?
I did.
So it's more fast paced 2D fighting is stuff that I'm always like a sucker for. I did wishlist that one. That was like the last one from this show for me. But I really liked how it looked. It's typical for me. If you've seen any of that video games that I've posted in the past, I'm gonna start doing that again. Any of the video game indie like games that I've posted where it's like 20 in one video or something, like most of them look like this because this is like chef's kiss for like the ROG Ally, which we will talk about later, or
So this
Steam
one
Deck or
is
something.
on Steam and Switch.
Steam and Switch, yeah. Shout out to Switch for some of these games. The more 2D games are still showing up on the Switch, but a lot of games that are like 3D are not. Which is kind of understandable. We understand that. But yeah, that was one of the last ones for me. Any other ones
So
for you though? What's up?
yeah, so I'll run through the rest of mine that are like my positives.
Okay.
So real quick, Big Boy Boxing, which is like a spiritual successor to Punch Out.
Okay.
So like a nice little just arcadey boxing game, which was Switch and Steam.
Okay.
Smack Studio. So it was a fighter where you create the stages and you make the fighters. Uh, so they also had real quick for there, and I'm sure it might come up in the cringe part. Uh, they had a panel where they would play like one of the games, and sometimes they insert themselves in the game. And this was one of
Mm-hmm.
the ones that they did, so it looked kind of weird. But some of the other created stuff looks great, and I'm interested to see what other people make that you could download for
Okay.
this like 2D fighter. But that one is gonna be Steam. So that's Smack Studio. Splody, which is PlayStation and Steam.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because it's labeled as PS4 and Steam.
Mm.
But oh well, it also says its initial release date was 2017. That's
Oh, so there's
weird.
something they've been
It's
working on for
older.
a while.
Yeah. So, uh, Oh, it looks like there's no. That was an older Splody. So there's a new one that they showed. It was called Splody. Because I had like looked all of these up. Uh, Basically it's a platformer.
Yeah.
But you explode yourself with potions, so you can't like jump or anything like that. Oh, here's the correct one. So I think it's just on Steam. So you
Okay.
have to throw a potion, and then the potion explodes you, so you can like launch where you need to go. But like, there'll be like little walls or things that you have to break. So if you throw the explosion, it'll break the wall part. If you throw it behind you, it'll break part of the ground. So you only have like so many tries that you can do to get through. So it looked like a fun puzzle platformer.
I want to
Uh,
ask you. Well, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead if you have
I was gonna
another
say
one.
for anybody that looks for this, this one is Splodey. If you forget the
Okay.
E, then you get a 2017 game. Uh,
Akatori, I think, was spelled Akatori.
I Yep.
Um, Out of the two
So
that I liked, I think that one looked a little bit better than LC. LC is just, like, do
yeah,
you want to build a snowman? So ELSIE.
okay.
Just search that under Steam and you'll see that. So those are the two picks that I have. Uh,
Three more,
yeah,
games real
go
quick.
ahead. Go ahead.
Another platformer. It was called Paper Clay with a K.
Mm-hmm.
Where you play as like this paper mache kind of chicken, and you're just it's just a like a regular like giant like world platformer, 3D platformer collector sort of
Yeah.
game. Nothing crazy, but it did catch my attention.
Okay.
So that one, Wild Bastards, which was like you have a bunch of cowboys.
It's just the name. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought a lot of the talking around it, and part of its introduction is in my cringe part, but the
Okay.
game itself looks fun. It's just a bunch of outlaw shooters, and like each one has their own weapon style. So it's just a cool first-person shooter. And then finally, I was stuck between cringe and like, well, this also actually looks like it could be creative. It's called Sabarus. It's basically the PETA game where you're a
Okay.
chicken. It's another chicken one, but you're a chicken in a factory
Chicken,
where they're about to
chicken
like.
showed up a lot.
It
Because
did,
the other game has some chickens, or the other show has some chicken stuff too.
it did, but this one
So,
it was you're a chicken inside of one of the like factories where they like cut up the chickens for like food, and you have to try and escape.
graphic.
But it's like a horror
That
game where
reminds me
you're
of
taking out.
shout out to the movie Chicken Run. I forgot how old it is, but
Oh my god.
the claymation movie
Yeah.
where they did this, and it even had like one sad moment where like one of the chickens actually did get cooked or something at one point. It's like, dang, this is dark. You can't show this to kids, man. But yeah, I think what's interesting, did one of your games that you mentioned, because I wrote here in the bad part for me was that they introduced two Smash clones. Was one of them that you mentioned that? Because I think that might have been the name I
Yes.
heard.
Smack
Um,
Studio. Here was the thing. It just said it was a fighter, and it looked like they had regular fighting too. But
yeah,
then the one that they displayed was a Smash clone. But like the earlier trailer also showed just the fighting game where they had health bars. So it
yeah,
looks like you get to design if the stage is like health or if it's knockout. Like you get to choose.
yeah. The only reason I put it in the bad category is because it technically, I think it's bad timing. With multiverses being back, and I think that that's like that's got a lot of people more attention, and I
True.
don't think people are gonna gravitate to this without any name value in there. But like I ain't had too much against the game itself. I just thought I don't think people would gravitate towards it. I don't think I would, but they were there, and it was two of them. It is what it is. I can mention real quick because the only other thing I put in the bad was that the skits that they were having throughout it were just kind of
Oh,
corny. They were just really
yeah.
corny, just corny skits.
I think my
Um,
issue too is there were skits in a 4 hour show. I think that was what kept
yeah,
bothering me. Was like, especially when you compare it to how Gorilla did theirs, which we'll talk about. I don't know. I
yeah,
just felt like it was like this. There was little things where I kept thinking this didn't have to be 4 hours.
yeah. It was 3.5 hours with that little mini pre-show that was hidden within the countdown.
Yeah.
that I just so happened to catch.
I thought
So
they were gonna replay it. Like I saw
yeah,
it in the countdown, but then I skipped over the countdown, and I thought like they were gonna re-show these like during.
yeah, it.
Because they did that last year. Certain games that were in the countdown, but they would do
Mm-hmm.
like here's a quick like 5 just back to back 30-second trailers, and it would usually be the ones that were in the countdown. So
Yeah. I thought the pace. So I have like a pacing thing here. I said it was definitely just too much talking in the beginning.
yep.
Um, and then at the same time, just 3.5 hours was just way too long for a show. There was
Yep.
a lot that could have been cut out because there was like throughout it, there was a lot of like, I guess developer talk or something
Yeah.
but it was unnecessary. It just felt
Which
unnecessary.
I think what was crazy is I don't know if you peeped this.
Yeah,
Their format wasn't bad. It just took forever. Like they were like, we're
yeah,
gonna show off. Like it was like 4 games per. Like we broke it down into these categories. We're
mm-hmm.
gonna show 4 games in each, and in those parts there'll be one developer talking, and then we'll also show off one of the games was like an actual live play.
Yeah. So the funny enough, that was the part that I said was good because you don't typically see live gameplay. It's just the
Yes.
pacing with it was a little off because they didn't have their transitions right. There was a lot of awkward just staring
So yeah, not
and
only that, and I'll bring it up as one of my bads. One of the first one I noticed, the
yeah,
part where the developer came out was like, "Here's some more footage on Rumble Club," and then they showed a trailer for Atomic Picnic,
yeah,
and then it came back, and he was like, "Well, that wasn't Rumble Club, that was Atomic Picnic," and here's the creator for that. So then she spoke. Then they showed more trailers, and he just kind of stood there on stage.
yeah.
And then eventually he was like, "I want to give like the Rumble Club its due. So here's the actual footage for Rumble Club." And I'm like, "Y'all messed up."
Yeah, did you catch that one time where I think they were set to play one of the games and one of the guys was just like, I don't even know what to do, but I guess I'll just
That was
go
my
for it.
other cringe. Oh, pull stay. So the whole game looked janky, pull stay, and it
Yeah.
was like one where it's like you make the person, and then you're like running back and forth to fight random things. I don't know. It was really weird. And he was like, "I don't know what to do, but I guess I'll just play it." And the
Yeah.
whole time they were playing it, you could tell they were just like they weren't even pretending like they liked it. They were like, "Oh, I don't know what's happening," and like I
It
guess
was
we just
so
do
cringe though. It was
this.
it
Yeah.
that kind of killed their momentum a little bit too cuz it was just like, all right, this is supposed to be a show, but it's just like failing in real time a little bit.
Yep. They should have picked a different game for them
Uh,
to play real quick.
yeah.
Uh, so also like, did you notice one that was actually good? It was the
Mhm.
2 guys competing in Splody to see who can finish the level fastest. Uh, and something that they brought up was like, this is gonna be a really good game for speedrunners, and
Yeah.
that's also what got me into it because I was like, I would love to see speedrunners for this game to see how well they can get through this because there's a lot of aiming and a lot of perfection you're gonna have to do. But yeah, that pull stay was trash.
I got my cringe moment of the show overall. I'm surprised you didn't mention it yet, but did you have anything else you wanted to mention before I mention that and then we'll go into
I
the
have
grade?
two. I have
Okay.
two more cringes.
You might
One of them's
mention it.
minor cringe.
Okay.
There's this game called The Bazaar.
Okay.
It was by Hearthstone, but what bothered me was the trailer showed this like little like creature thing, kind of like exploring this whole city, and I'm like, well, I'm trying to see what this game is about, and it looks good from exploring, just for it to be a card game. Like it was like a really simple, like it looked like Hearthstone card game, and I'm just like, you could have left this like video for like the opening trailer of the game for the lore. Like this ruined it. And then the other one, this might be the one you're talking about,
Yeah.
when the dude said the lesbian joke. Did you catch that?
I
He
don't think that's
said,
what it is, but go
"Oh,
ahead. Go
he
ahead.
right before he introduced uh the was it the wild bastards." which almost ruined the game for me. When he introduced it, he said, "Time to get into my thespian bag," and then
Oh
puts
my
on like a
god.
hat and makes like he tries to sound like a country guy, like a cowboy. But it was like, did you accidentally really mix those two words up, or were you trying to be funny?
You know what's funny too? Like if this show had like the same traction as like the PlayStation show or something, that would have made like people would have been on their protesting, you know, like
Right?
they would have been on that energy basically. And he would have been almost banned from gaming in a way, at least as a spokesperson or something.
Uh-huh. That was the
Yeah.
part that just, as soon as he said it, I was like, and it almost ruined the game. But then when I tried
Yeah.
to ignore what because I had to rewind it, and I was like, did he say what I think he said? Uh, but yeah, those are mine. What was yours?
Mine, I still think this might be the most cringing thing because it still comes from just what we've been talking about for what seems to be a few months. But they had this segment that was called Devs for Hire. Do you remember that? It was
I
it
don't.
was it was a moment in the somewhere. I don't think it was in the middle. It might have been because this was just such a long thing. But at one point, they had like 4 or 5 different people where they had like this almost like pose that they did. Well, it's almost like if you was posing to be a bachelor, and then they will show their name on the screen, and then like a brief little description or something that come up, almost like an on-screen resume, and it was just like they were looking to be hired from somebody,
Oh my god.
and they was basically trying to like get a job like within the show, like we're available, we're devs that's available, but they called it Devs for Hire, and it was just there, and it was just like these random like little group of people that just was like, hey, I'm available to have a job basically, and it was just like, yo, like it was crazy.
I completely missed it. I
You
think
missed that.
I had both shows going at the same time. So if it was just a lot of people talking, I paid attention to the other.
Yeah, because it was a moment where they wasn't even talking about a game, but it was a bunch of them standing around, and they had their name on the screen, and then they put like a little description of what they do and everything, or what they've done, and it was just like, yeah, we're trying to get acquired by somebody. It was just people though. It
That
wasn't
felt a
like
little desperate.
yeah, it was just people. I was just like, okay, like they did that basically somewhere in the middle of the show. I think this show, if you had cut out a lot of that fluff, this probably wouldn't have condensed that much down, but it could have condensed to like 2 hours at least, and have a lot more just gaming. I think what they were trying to do with just showing people play games live was probably a good idea, but poorly executed. The pacing was a little off. It was almost like the people who was in the production trucks was just not production trucks, but in my head I'm thinking wrestling, like WWE, like how they know how to transition quicker when they need to. The people who was doing this didn't, and so there was just like, it's almost like they didn't know when to transition, or maybe they was trying to load up the game first or something. I don't know what was happening, but that just took way too long for me. The biggest gripe is going to be the time. I think this could have been easily 2 shows in one, or not even 2 shows in one. It should have just been still one show. Just cut out a lot of it. It didn't help the show. It took away from the show a little bit to me, actually, when we just had a lot of just corniness throughout it. The Devs for Hire thing was really at the peak of cringe for me. Because I don't think I've ever seen that in gaming, period. I don't think. Well, I mean, there was the one show a few years back when it was just literally the Zoom meeting. It was like 20 people on the screen or something, and it was like that was their E3, and it was just like, what? And I think they were trying to have a meeting about diversity in gaming or something. I forgot which show it was, but that was still kind of cringe in itself. Maybe that was worse because it was literally a meeting and there was like nothing there, right?
Yeah.
But this was just kind of weird because I would never expect you to just how do you orchestrate that? And then when you think about like all of the different companies and stuff that had to like fire their people or whatever, when we mentioned each one, it was like hundreds of people each. A couple of them were thousands of people, and it was just like in my head, what makes these like 5 to 10 people better, or
Well,
they get, you know, like, I don't know.
my question is, what devs are watching this?
Yeah, it would have had to
In my head
been
is
a studio
like,
head who would have watched this, right?
and like,
And
why? Unless they're watching to see their game be shown, like,
yeah,
why, like, or if they're trying to look up competition, which I don't think that's the way to do it. So it's just I don't understand.
the
Who,
only thing I can say they should do is almost like start a Twitch and just tag companies where you are advertising, like on like Twitter or X. Like, I'm going
yeah,
live, and then literally while you're live, you're showing yourself basically do the work from the desk of just you creating something real quick. Like, that's you kind of have to just show the work. I don't think, because in that format it was just like, here's a person, here's their name, and then here's some stuff, and it was out of place. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you would just, it wouldn't cross my mind for them to hire those people. They would, all companies would still go through the same process. As like, you got to come to my website and fill out this form and fill out this questionnaire or submit resumes. We're not gonna
oh,
try to find you. You know what I mean? At least not there. But how would you grade this?
are we doing letter or out of 10?
I did out of 10.
Out of
Um,
10, 5. I honestly feel like it would have been kind of a 4 if I would have seen that developer part.
yeah,
Uh, but I initially wrote 5. I felt like while I did write down a good chunk of like a nice amount of games here
hmm,
that I did like, I still only wrote down 8 games out of a 4-hour show. Right? Like it was eight
yeah,
games, and like each game only had really like a 2-minute ish
yeah,
trailer, and it was still 4 hours. So to me, it should have been more than 8. That I wrote down, because I'm pretty sure I wrote about 8 or 9 from
yeah,
the Guerrilla one, and that was like half the amount of time. So, and even then, like some of these that I wrote down, though I
yeah,
like it, it wasn't really a big ooh I need to get it like Paper Clay, right? It looked interesting because it's a regular collector platformer. That would mean I'm gonna jump at it, right? So,
right.
yeah, it was really a 5 for me.
Okay.
It doesn't help that I was watching the Gorilla one like at the same time. So even though we're about to talk about it, like what I noticed is the Gorilla got to the game faster, where this one, opened with a musical number and then like introducing hosts, then sort of a skit, and then the first game. And it was like,
Yeah,
that's what got me.
Gorilla had games coming like a lot better than this.
Yeah.
But I
What
gotta
about you?
come down hard on it.
Okay.
For reasons that might seem unfair, but I'll have my explanations for why.
Well, I mean, you
In
also only had 2 games that you liked, so I can see why.
It's, but the thing is, that's not why I'm coming down on it though. But yes, my grade was a 3.5 out of 10. Um,
Fair.
I feel like I have to come down a little bit harder because even though PlayStation had their state of play where they announced it last minute and they were the first show, before that happened, every like leading up to it, it was known that this was going to be the first of many shows, right? You kind of have to leave a
Yeah.
lasting impact a little bit,
True.
and at the same time, it was way too long for what it needed to be. And let's say we have casual gamers, right? Let's say people are casually saying, you know what, I want to check out some shows. I sent some out to some people, right? I was telling people about, like, there was going to be a bunch of shows this week. I sent the list out, right? Let's say they watched this first one and it was what it was, right? And they was like, man, this is how long? 3.5 hours? Like, we've had people behind the scenes tell us that the podcast was too long and it's not even three and a
Yeah.
half hours, right? But that was the first show, and there's over 10 of them if I'm not mistaken. Would have right then and there, you know what, forget about it, and then they don't watch the rest, and it was their fault because they were too long and it was too many skits. There was people begging for money, begging for a job in the middle somewhere, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, maybe you'll get somebody to come back when Nintendo does their show, or they'll come back when Xbox does their show, possibly PC. There's going to be a bulk of these other shows where they're not going to watch it because this was probably too long and it turned them away from it. And they're like, I kind of wanted to be more hardcore, but it was like, I'll stick to being casual. Everything else looks stupid. My go-tos is still Madden. My go-tos is still NBA. My go-tos is still Call of Duty, right? And it was like they threw it back out the window. It's like I could try a single player game, or I could try this or that, but then they see this and was like, you know what, forget about it. Like, gaming is stupid, just like I said it was. I feel like they kind of caused that for an unspoken amount of people.
That's fair.
Being first, because if I go to the list, because we're going to talk about the list in a second. The next show that has some name value to hardcore fans will be the Summer Game Fest, right? And then the Xbox show has name value to people outside of hardcore because it's called Xbox. There's a bunch of shows in the middle here that will literally get skipped, and you can argue it would be their fault. Just me, I feel like that's somewhat valid, but I'm not going to give it like a 0 and be like this was the worst thing I've ever seen, because I don't think it was the worst thing I've ever seen. I just thought certain things like the devs for hire thing was just like why? Like, no, do not do that. But 3.5 out of 10. I did like the fact that they were willing to just show a game and play it live, where literally, you know, we've talked about in the past, somebody like IGN would just literally upload some video and you just be like, what in the world is this? And you know, some stuff like when some of the other shows, they show off gameplay, what's considered gameplay, is always this cut edit, you know, thing that they put together that's still part of the trailer. But to just show a game live with all its flaws and whatever, that's pretty brave, you know, for a company to decide I am willing to put my game out there like that, no matter what state it's in. So I can appreciate that. That I give them more points for that than I probably should have, because it was still poorly executed. But you don't really see that. But then at the same time, you don't see people begging for a job either.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying, 3.5. And so you're saying a 5 out of 10. For the people out there, I guess you could probably just run through the trailers. I couldn't tell you to just watch this. It was way too long of a watch. I would actually recommend, so we're going to get into Guerrilla Collective right now. I think this was fine for people to watch, though, as a show. I think there was enough going on here, and right away I could tell you there really wasn't skits. It wasn't the same type of format. Definitely nobody was getting on there and you know, showing off their resume live on the screen or something.
Right.
But we had a gentleman by the name of Jonathan that worked for one of the media companies that I didn't write down. And in the opening, he did a little bit too much talking for my taste. He had a lot of announcements that kind of was just like, okay, get to it. But I did write down one of his announcements that was called the Diggy Game Awards that he said that was getting ready to start. And I think that stood for Dope Indie Game Awards, which I thought was kind of cool. Well, I think I'm missing a letter somewhere, but that's okay. I didn't write it all down. Which I think I want to try to follow for myself. I'm not. We don't necessarily have to go over it on the podcast unless we really ain't got nothing to talk about. but I don't know when it's gonna happen or what. Like, I just saw it said "Dope Indie Game Awards" is something that they said they were gonna start, and I thought that was kind of cool. In the middle of all his announcements.
So I did write down for the opening. I felt like
Mhm.
he speaks too slow.
Yeah, yeah. At least though, I think it was mostly just him.
Yeah.
And then somewhere at the end they showed Greg Miller, who introduced one of the games that I liked. But he was mostly there, and it wasn't too much of him. It was just well, I guess I can go into the pacing a little bit. There was some times where they went back to him and he was still like recapping some stuff he said the last time he talked. And I think they may have been making him do that because it was a live show, so if somebody didn't catch it. But at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like, well, it is still a replay and it's still there. So you didn't have to keep telling people to scan the QR code and all that other stuff. He didn't really have to do
As
that.
you compare to wrestling earlier, where you said the production truck, I looked at it as one of those things that the announcers got to announce throughout the whole night that SummerSlam is this Sunday, like sort of thing.
Yeah, I felt
I
that
didn't-
way because they'd make Michael Cole spam everything,
Yeah.
basically.
So I
It
wasn't
was,
too hurt with the recap. I guess also because I was watching two at once. And a lot of
yeah.
times they were just talking, no game. I wasn't listening. But I didn't feel like he kind of spoke slow. But what I did like is, yeah, it wasn't like, it was just like game trailer, game trailer, game
Yeah,
trailer.
so
He talked a
I
little, game trailer. So
yeah, before we get into the games, I think I do want to mention the pace a little bit because we already kind of talked about it. The pacing here was better than obviously the OTK show. But my only gripe was, even though they were showing game trailers back to back, once you got to the point where they flashed the name on the screen, I kind of felt like for a lot of those games it went too quick. And in order for me to catch the stuff that I liked, I really had to actually pause it. And it was a lot of times where I had to do that. But there was a lot more games. Like, I have more of a list here than what I had on the other show. My list looks a little bit more like what your list looked like. But
so for this one, I also had, like I said, 8 games.
yeah.
One of the things that I didn't like, even though it's like, trailer, and I do like that, I feel like if you are going to have back-to-back trailer with no talking, the trailer's got to show some gameplay. So there were like a couple games. There's one that I wrote down that I liked, but I also had to look up after, because before I was like, the trailer looks cool, but I don't even know what type of game this is, and it could very well be like a multiplayer shooter, in which case then it's bad. And it's not, like when I looked it up after, but like it was based off of the trailer. I knew kind of what the game would be about, but I didn't know what the gameplay would be. And then I kept thinking, imagine that game from the OTK where it showed the thing exploring the city, but if it didn't show the part where it was just a card game. Right? And I'm like excited for this exploration game, and it turns out it's none of that. It is just a simple board, and you playing cards to destroy your opponent's cards.
Yeah. So this show was 2.5 hours. I remember last year Guerrilla Collective had a show in similar length, but they had a second show which was almost a recap of the first show, which was completely useless. Yeah. And on the program or on the list, it looks like they don't have a second show. So it seems to me like they were taking some of the feedback and also watching the way the pacing was for shows in the past where people were praising, because they kind of mimicked it a little bit, where it's like we're gonna do more games and less talking, which I appreciate. What's your first game on the list?
Reckless.
Reckless.
The
Okay.
first game they showed.
The very first one. Okay.
Yeah, so it looked a little unpolished.
Okay.
But it was like a skateboarding game where you and other people are in the game. You can build maps and you're skateboarding.
Okay, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked fun. Again, I was like, it didn't look 100% polished, but I don't know if it 100% needs to be.
Yeah, sometimes we got to give the indie games like space a little bit more credit, because it's like there's a level of like acceptance for a certain level of jank, like
Yeah.
as long as it's fun,
Yep.
right? And that kind of looked like one of those games where it's like it might be a little rough on the edges, but you should still have fun with it.
And you get to play with up to 50 people online.
Oh, that's gonna really be
So you
jank.
get to, yeah.
I can see some frame rate dips on that, but
Oh
that's
yeah.
okay. That's okay. Um, the first game for me is a little bit interesting because I do want to say a couple things about it. It was called like Yuka Replayly.
That was game number
Um,
2 for me.
so that
And
comes
that was the second game played.
yeah. So that was the first one that I wrote down. That's actually from the ukulele series. For anybody who was begging Xbox to come out with a Banjo Kazooie game, right? You kind of want to support this because what the story is Rare Replay, or just Rare, the company Rare. The people who originally worked on Banjo, not everybody, but a good chunk of them are actually left from under Rare, just individuals. They didn't really have a name, but they created their own thing. I think it was Platonic, and ukulele as a series was what they came up with. And the first game was supposed to be like basically a Banjo Kazooie game, but they didn't have Banjo Kazooie's rights, so they just created these two little like monster creature things, and it was ukulele.
Yep.
So for anybody who really wants a Banjo game, you kind of have to play this. It's kind of because these are the developers, and this is what they came up with, and this is
It's
their
considered a spiritual successor to Banjo Kazooie.
yeah. So this particular game is their third game. Their second game, I believe, was called Ukulele and the Impossible Lair.
Yep.
That was the game where they were mimicking the Donkey Kong like side scroller game, similar to like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went from 3D to 2D, but both games I think at one point was given away on Epic Games. I'm not sure if this one is too or is going to be at some point, but I am wishlisting it. That was one that I wishlist. I don't necessarily feel like I need to buy it right away, but it is something I will get around to. Yeah.
Did you see the joke that they made at the end? So it was like little jokes in their speech talking to each other.
Okay.
And Ukulele was like, "What a weird name for my game, Yuka Replayly. What are they gonna name the next one? Nukulele?" Like it's like an NEW. Like it was mocking the game name.
Yeah, I was actually confused for a second too, because I actually thought that they tried to say this is a remake of the first game, similar to what we've been seeing from PlayStation on the PS4 to PS5.
It's a remake of the first Ukulele.
So it's not a sequel at all. It's just simply
it's a remake. It's a remake with remixed challenges and better controls. One of the biggest complaints that the first game got was like camera issues. People would say that's why they would fail levels. So I think they fixed the camera, updated graphics a little, helped the controls, and put some new challenges in there. But this is a full. That's why it's called Yuka Replay.
Okay. Yeah, because I was confused on that. I was just like, is that different? Because I have the other game.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I don't know if I'm gonna actually get this one. Yeah, but
it's purely a remaster.
Okay.
And then they were saying that if they make another game, so like their fourth one, which would be technically like number 3 in the story, that was the joke. Is that are they gonna call it New Kalele since they're messing with the name? But yeah, this is a remaster.
Yeah. So anybody out there who's like, calling for Banjo Kazooie, but definitely play Banjo Kazooie and then Banjo Kazooie and then Nuts and Bolts, and then come over to this series and support this series, because I don't think you're gonna get with the way Xbox is going, and Rare has gone completely full blown in with Sea of Thieves, so I don't think you ever see this coming from them. And this definitely isn't even a like a game that Xbox players really are asking for. It was good to have a variety, but it's not necessarily the taste of Xbox in my opinion. So I'm not sure if you're gonna see Banjo. I would expect Banjo to, with the way Xbox is handling some of their games, I almost expect them to hand that over to Nintendo, almost, and just like not sell it, but like have them make it, and then it's on Xbox and Nintendo or something.
Yeah.
But we don't know. The gaming industry is strange right now. But
Yeah.
what's the next game for you?
Deathbound.
Okay.
So, Deathbound is a Souls-like game where they said the word Souls-like a lot in this trailer. Like they really wanted you to know it's Souls-like.
Yeah, Souls like,
But
just the term Souls like is like such a selling point right now because of everything
yeah,
going on.
but the
Yeah.
game is set up where it has several different characters, and you basically pick like four, and you
Yeah.
can switch who you are. I imagine you share one health bar, but you can switch who you are seamlessly in the world. And each one has a different fighting style, right? So you get to, it's like if you built the whole two-handed like knight, and then all of a sudden you get to this part where he's just too slow. You're supposed to be someone fast-paced, and now you're struggling. Well, you can switch to your fast-paced person. Yeah, right. It's like four different loadouts in the same gameplay. The only thing is, everybody they said has like different like motives and stuff like that. So like sometimes their motives clash. So depending on the party you put together, there might be penalties in like certain buffs. Right, you might have some debuffs or buffs based off of who you put together as you go through the game.
Okay. Um, I don't think I had that one, but the next one I don't think you probably would have this either. This is one of those where I was just like on the fence, but just was like, you know what, I could just wish list it, and it was, I think it was called Keyboard, or
Okay.
I don't think it had the L.
I
I want to
think
say
I know what you're.
Killboard, but
Oh no, Kiborg.
yeah, it was like a PS2 looking 3D beat 'em up. It looked a little jank. It looked like it was very stiff at times, but it looked like something that was like, you could probably like throw it on or something if you just like really going into PC gaming where you're just playing all these like obscure looking things. That just kind of seemed like that's where I would be at the tail end of like my gaming career, where I'm just playing a bunch of stuff as a PC gamer if I'm going to really be a PC gamer. But it reminded me of the PlayStation 2. A lot of emulated stuff that I've seen over there that where I was like downloading at some point. So I kind of wrote it down. Really was on the fence though. That's like probably my least one on this list. But yeah.
That's okay. My next one, funny enough, is probably something you didn't write down.
Okay.
Knights in Tight Spaces.
Yeah,
uh,
I did.
so this game is basically it's turn-based but card, which I'm been starting to get into.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like basically you have a little party and you have a different room set up, and you got to kind of like tactically, like turn-based move around the board. But then the attacks you can do are all based off of whatever cards you have in your hand, right? So it's like a deck builder sort of. Very similar to when we talk about it, the free Epic game for this
Yeah.
week, which I think is a must play. Uh, so yeah, this one looked interesting to me as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of games that showed up here are games that could potentially be free Epic games at some point.
Yeah,
Last show as well. Almost everything where it's like it looks like it lives and dies on PC. It's like you're almost expecting it to be a free Epic game at some point. Because every now and then they just throw something out there so random. It's like I didn't even know this game exists until you said it was free. Um, the next one I have was called Ninja Slayer. Not too much for it. It has some, cool like black and white moments, Ghost of Tsushima looking moments, but it was mainly 2D. And I thought it was cool. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna follow this. But yeah.
okay. The next one is the one that I was referring to, where I said it looks like it could be cool, but I have to like I don't know what it's about.
hmm
But I had to look it up after and realize it's called Evil v Evil, but all one word.
I saw
Uh,
that, and there's another game that had that same look that was on the Switch.
Oh,
The same type of graphic and everything, and I think it might have had the same name. I wish we had like somebody who could tell us, cause
well,
I know it's a Switch game that's like something like that. Yeah,
I would need more than that. But for this one,
yeah.
basically, when I looked it up, it's a fast-paced first-person shooter where you play as a vampire and you're mowing down hordes of zombies. So, like in the trailer,
Okay.
he's fighting some zombies and he tackles one and like bites into the neck, and then all of a sudden, like his eyes are red. So I knew he was a vampire. I like vampires, and he was fighting zombies, but I couldn't tell right away. I was like, this could be a single-player game. This could be third person, or this could be a vampire versus zombie team shooter, something like I don't know what it's about, but I looked it up and yeah, it is a first person uh game. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, it does look kind of cool. The next one that I have, this is like a game that I think I wrote down that actually should have a Steam demo that you can play. This one kind of looked like a Hades clone, to be honest, but it looked cool. Wizard of Legend 2. Um,
So
looked
we
straight
have
up like a
featured
Hades game, but yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
on our channel. We have featured Wizard of Legend 1 gameplay.
Okay, so that was a game
Yeah.
that you've shown in the past.
Uh huh.
Okay,
So it's also it was the next game on my list too. It's
okay.
an upgraded version from that. So one of the best things I like about it, Wizard of Legend 2 advertised like, hey, two-player co-op, but it was only couch co-op. There was no online. This one has up to four-player online co-op.
Yeah, I did see that. It had
Uh,
both couch and online.
yep.
Yep.
So the idea is supposed to be, you pretty much can control the four elements. You pick and choose what your loadout's going to be for which four you want to go in, and then you have to just try and make your way through an entire dungeon. If you die, you restart. And each time you go to fight, the dungeon's procedurally generated. So like, you could just have like, hey, I gotta fight fire people in like the fire world. Oops, I brought an all fire loadout. Well, this is gonna suck. Or like, uh, you get grass people the first time, and you're like, hey, this is gonna be easy. So, I think having the four-player thing where each one can probably pick different stuff, will be good. But it looks like a fun game. I like the first one, so.
I do want to address something that could potentially come up if somebody thought about this. Like if we had a much bigger audience, I'm pretty sure somebody would be like, Supreme, you are a hypocrite for saying you didn't like them Smash clones because they were clones of Smash, but you like this even though it's a clone of Hades. Listen, it is what it is. I can't really explain it. You know, it just I think this is a little bit better looking. It looked more polished. It looked like there was more
Uh,
more going on with this, but yeah.
I would like to actually fight that.
Okay.
Because Hades came out in 2020 and Wizard of Legend came out in 2018.
Ooh,
Wizard of
okay.
Legend came out first because I remember when that game was announced in 2017, and I
Yeah.
was following it like crazy because I really wanted this game. Uh,
Ooh, so would it be
so
controversial to say? Would it be you know what I'm gonna say? Would it be controversial to go there and say that maybe Hades took inspiration from this and a little bit
uh,
more?
I feel like it could have. It took inspiration a little bit. Like, Hades or Wizard of Legend was a little more not like 8-bitty style, similar
Okay.
to the game that's on the screen, which is also a clone. Uh, but yeah, I'd feel comfortable saying that, which I don't think that's a bad thing. Wizard of
Okay.
Legend is a great game. Uh,
But
Hades
at the
just ended
same
up
time,
coming
like for
forward.
anybody out there, you know, play both. You know, if you
Yeah,
really like it, play both. Especially
yeah,
like when we talk about Souls like. So Souls like means from software and then whoever tried to copy from software. But if you like
yeah.
those games, play both,
I
right?
agree.
That's something I was doing because I was like I'm playing Bloodborne now, which is the official. But I told everybody to play Cove too many
Yeah.
times, right? So
Can we take
yeah,
a quick break from the gorilla real quick?
yeah. Go ahead and
Real
talk
fast.
about what's on the screen. Go ahead.
On the screen is called Cassette Beast. It is, of course, as you can tell, a Pokemon clone. But to me, it's a lot. It's a lot better. Not necessarily like
Better than
it's
Pokemon?
refreshing. I would say that it's more refreshing, right?
Okay.
Where you know how people will complain that Pokemon is very similar in like everything that you do each generation.
Mm-hmm.
This one you make your own little sprite, and the story is a little more adult. Like it's a lot more. It reminds me of Digimon, where
Okay.
Digimon will like in the phrase where you'd be like, "Oh, Digimon sometimes goes there." Like when you just kind of think about it, it's like, "Oh, that's a little dark." That's what this story is. It's dark, but the idea is, you have a little cassette tape, and you catch the beast by recording them with the cassette tape, and then instead of having Pokemon, you turn into the monster.
Oh wow.
And you can switch which one you turn into, and then you have a partner, and you guys, if you build up a certain meter, you can fuse together to make a bigger monster that has like both abilities, uh, and things like that. You can put like stickers on your cassette tape, which gives your beast extra powers, and it has its own little like type chart with like beast and electric and angel and all this other stuff. Uh, but it's like a nice little deep story. Uh, I'm really enjoying it. So this is definitely a. I think if you are a Pokemon fan, you will really like this game. If you're a Digimon fan, you will really like this game.
Well, I noticed the cursor on the screen, the mouse cursor. So is this like a more of a point and click kind of thing?
It can be. You can also play it with controls. So I was
Okay.
playing it with mouse first, and then later I've been playing it with the controller. Much
Okay.
easier with the controller.
Okay. No problem. Um, can you tell us what the platforms are for it?
Yeah. So it is, I believe, Steam and Switch. Uh,
That's
let me
probably
make
cool.
sure. Yep.
Almost
Is
everything is Steam and Switch with this quality, so I ain't
yeah,
mad at
Steam
it.
Switch. Oh, it's also on Xbox. Steam Switch and Xbox. So
Okay.
not PlayStation. Oh, it's also on Android and iOS.
Oh, that's a first.
Yeah.
Everything but PlayStation. All right,
Yep.
that's a
Uh,
first.
yeah, but all different types of monsters. The game can get challenging. It is reviewed just to give a taste of it. It's $20 on Steam right now, and
Okay.
out of 5,942 reviews, it's rated 10 out of 10.
Okay.
Like this is a very like nice game. The music is fun. The beasts are interesting. Uh yeah, it's really it's fun. It's turn based, of course, RPG. But I guess, like I said, it's like the story feels just more like involved, right? It's not the simple, oh, I just want to explore and like catch everything. It's like, what's this mystery that's going on? There's like an evil cult in the game that you're gonna have to fight, and like crazy mystery stuff. Like this is just happening. I'm trying not to ruin the game.
Right.
And I definitely suggest this is a game to play, especially if you like monster catcher games.
Okay. Cool. Cool. That's dope. All right. I have only a couple more games that I was gonna put down that I like from this show.
I got two more.
But what's cool is that it's a couple more that's actually like what I thought was some of the better ones though. But I do want to mention real quick. So right after that, they showed Elsie again officially, which I said was the first game that I liked from the first show. They showed it again here. And I do want to address one thing. So I like that game, and I think it still looked good on this show. But and they're already got their formats ready to go. But if somebody somewhere is listening, somebody who's like a puppet master, almost like a gaming Illuminati, I don't want to see games show up on multiple shows. I would like to see one on that one show because they're long enough as it is. It's like when we start getting into duplicate territory, it's kind of crazy. Like the one year they did Guardians of the Galaxy, they showed it like 3 or 4 times. I don't want to see a bunch of stuff shown more than once. I didn't take points away from Gorilla's show because of this, but I just kind of want to say that. But
Fair.
again, we probably are going to see that a little bit. But the next game that I liked, which I said, I think for myself, it was my game of this show, which is fully multi-platform. What I saw, it was on everything. It is called Beyond the Ice Palace 2.
Okay.
I just thought it was dope looking. It was pretty much right up my alley again. You know, the Metroidvanias that just have like, you know, hack and slash. It was a dude with like this chain with like the two kind of like spikes or hooks or something on the chain. So it was kind of God of War-ish, you know, in a 2D style, Metroidvania style. This one is one of those where if I thought I was going to have a top five, it would probably creep in at the bottom. I just thought it was pretty cool because I don't really have a top five this year, but I do want to, because I didn't tell you before, I think after all the shows are done, which we'll probably do the episode after this episode coming up, I did want to say, what are the top five games that you want to, like say are your top fives from all the shows, period, if you were to grab a top five. So right now, I want to say this is one of them. And then the other one obviously is the Astrobot. So I got two so far, where it's just like these are the top, like that's it. But yeah, I wish list that. It might be, depending on the price, something I might get more sooner than later.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
My next one was Pinball Spire.
Okay.
It was a pinball game, right? Your normal pinball game, but the maps look all interesting and like it's not just shoot the pinball up and stop it from falling. It was more you have to like solve puzzles while using a pinball machine, basically. So it's like it's hit the ball in certain spots and do all this extra stuff. So that seemed interesting to me.
Okay, dope.
Go
I
have
ahead.
one more. I don't know if you had another one.
I do, but so yeah, I do. I want to say it kind of goes in with what I was going to say about the next part, which is just like the closing. I thought the closing was very good because they were starting to show like the last 4 or 5 games that I thought was like a better showing, even though I only picked 2 games. One of them was the one I just spoke on. The other one is this one called Somber Echoes.
Okay.
It was still kind of what we were just talking about. It's more Metroidvania style 2D action. It has somebody with a spike, and they threw the spear and spiked somebody and kind of like slow motioned it for a second. It went by really quick, but I think that was my last game on the show. I just thought the showing of the end portion of this was pretty good because they showed like 4 or 5 games and it looked like they were somewhat like put together well, the way that they were showing those.
Interesting.
But yeah, what was your last one?
Munch. So the last game I had was called Munch. It's a roguelike where you play a monster and you eat like the people trying to stop you, and you keep evolving into a bigger monster based off of whatever you eat. So like whatever you eat determines what type of mutation you get, and then you're still just fighting more and more creatures and people as they try to stop you, and you gotta try and keep getting stronger and stronger.
Okay. All right.
Now, funny enough, you mentioned the end of the show.
Yeah.
And for the closing, I felt like Somber Echoes was the wrong game to show last.
Okay. I can see that.
That Beyond the Ice Palace or the other game Iron Meat. So neither two of those were technically on my list.
Yeah.
That's just not my style of like game. Even though they both look good, but I felt like they had two of the best trailers in the show, and I felt like one of those two should have been the final one shown.
See, I feel bad because Iron Meat was also one of those where it was on my almost making it list, but I just chose against it because it's also a game I don't really think I would play. I just know I honestly thought they were going to say that was a 2D RoboCop because it looked like RoboCop. He looked like RoboCop for real.
It does. But I felt like that or the Ice Palace one should have been the final game. I felt like their trailers were a little more impressive than Somber Echoes.
Yeah.
Nothing against Somber Echoes. I just felt like they should have been the last one shown. Just
it
to like end on a strong one.
It should have been because they circled back to Jonathan, the host and stuff. Yeah. And I was just like, all right, I guess it's done. But I did have some good and some bad. I do want to mention the good though. Like I said earlier, I think this was a better pace, a better flow, compared to OTK, obviously. And it seemed like they were paying attention to other shows in the past from some of the bigger shows.
Uh-huh.
But the main thing that I thought was good about this was that for some of the games that they were showing, a lot of games that they were showing, they had demos that you can go to that was right on Steam, for a lot of these games. A couple games that I had on my list had demos. I believe one of them was Wizard of Legend 2. And I think another one on here had it. I'm not sure if I wrote it down, but just demos. Demos was showing up every other like 3 or 4 games. And so I think that was a good thing. Did you have something you want to say as far as good?
Good. I mean, just I like the pacing of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the games looked good. Like even there was some, like I said, that didn't make my list, but still looked like a good game. So I felt like this should have, to me, been the start. This was to me a lot better than the
Yeah, if they switched it around. Like I feel like the OTK should have been closer towards the end, where it's just like, here's the final hurrah. We did all our best shows, and then now here's just an additional 3.5, 4 hours of some stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
It still would have been overwhelming and a little annoying at the end, but you would have at least got better showings, coming out. But
yeah, I did have 3 bad things though, or 3 things I didn't like / cringe.
Okay.
So one of them, Tomba Remastered.
Okay.
I don't know if it was just me, but my issue was they were like, play the original or play the remastered, and like nothing looked different. Like as they were like playing, I was like, "Are you showing the original? Are you showing the remastered, or did you show both?" Because all of it just looked the same, like to me. So I couldn't tell what was remastered in that.
Yeah, shout out to the RG35XX and the Mayu Mini Plus. These are the little Game Boy devices. One of the games that I have was this game that's on the device as the original PS1 game. So a lot of those devices they advertise that they have PS1 emulation. I believe this particular game, that's where it came from.
Okay.
It did look like it was old and everything, but I think that's where it came from. And I have like the original, I believe, on the device. I haven't played it yet. It's just one of the titles that I just added on there.
So when you do play it and then go re-look at this trailer and tell me if anything's different.
It don't look like it's different.
Did not look remastered. My second issue, Hollow Body. I thought the trailer that they showed was bad. Like it was a horror game, and one of the things I didn't like is like every single zombie she ran into, she had to empty the entire clip before the zombie went down. But also, it was the same zombie for the entirety of the trailer. Like she would shoot one down, run, and it was the same enemy, or she shot one down, and then when she turned around, it was the same zombie, but it was just the same zombie for the whole thing.
What's funny is that I have this as my bad as well. And so like I remember glancing at more than one screen, but when I went back to that, it almost looked like it was doing the exact same thing over and over again. But it technically was different, but it was because it does look like it's the same zombie. I thought it was the same thing over and over again. But I did recognize what they were doing. This is supposed to be a clone basically of the original Silent Hill games that were on the PlayStation 2. So we have like the remake that's going to come out for Silent Hill 2 at some point, maybe next year or this year, I forgot. But like this looks like the original a little bit, but it was really bad. It was bad. And I put that down. I had one more that I put down for bad, which I just thought was just more.
Let me hear yours.
It seemed like a game where it's just like, who asked for this? And it was a game where they had you playing as the egg. Like quite literally, it was called Egging On, I think. and I didn't pay attention to the dude that much who was trying to explain it, but
It
I
was
don't
the
know.
platformer, right?
It was just like you play as this egg that, yeah, it was in a chicken coop that has like this up and down, like kind of obstacle course kind of thing where you're going up and down like you're just, it's not necessarily a ladder, but they're just like the egg is making his way to like the second and third floor of this, and you would run past chickens and hens and stuff, and they would like knock you around, and like if you get broken, it would look like it was a sunny side up egg inside of it, and then you restart. And it was just like, who would play this? Like, it was just weird.
That was oddly one of two egg games.
Yeah,
It was a lot
yeah,
of chickens.
a lot of
Like
chickens.
cats last year, chickens this year. But
I
there
didn't
was
understand.
another egg game where it's
Yeah,
a platformer, like a 2D side-scrolling platformer. But if you jump too high, you hit the ceiling and crack. And if you fall too far, you hit the ground and crack.
yeah. They might as well have just went official and did Humpty Dumpty. Isn't Humpty Dumpty like open the domain at this point?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They should have just did it. It would have probably sold a little bit more or get more hype at least. But yeah, it's just as the egg game is just like, I don't know how long it took them to make that, but it's just like I don't see who would want to play this unless you just want to crack jokes with your like Twitch, audience in a way.
Jokes.
Yeah, like yeah. Shout out to the eggs, I guess.
I had one more bad one.
Yeah.
Steam World Heist 2. And one, I don't like the Steam World games. They just nothing appealing to me.
Yeah.
But the thing that bothered me is they had the like little voiceover talking, and it was like, let's see some combat. And it went to the game, and it was like unappealing music, so it was just very slow and quiet. And like the turn-based stuff was moving really slow and carefully. It did a couple back and forth moves, and then she went, "This is taking too long. Let's get to the end." And it just like starts fast forwarding until you get to the end of the level. And I'm like, if your trailer says the gameplay is too long and boring, why would I play your game?
Yeah.
Like you could have done it better. You chose this scene to show and then said, "Oh, this is boring. Let's fast forward and see what happens."
Yeah, it was just crazy. It was crazy. But I will say, just as a show, this was better than the last one. How would you grade this?
7 out of 10. Probably
7 out of 10.
Like it's a high 7, 7.5.
Okay, I put 6.5. But I did still like everything that I wish list, and I thought I had a nice variety here. Even though like I'm really big on the 2D stuff, there was still some variety here, and I still pulled a game that I would almost put as like, this would be my indie game, of my top 5 if I had a top 5. So technically I got like 3 games this year. So if anybody wants to know, Black Myth Wukong, which was the day one thing that I mentioned a long time ago, and then recently we're saying Astrobot coming out of nowhere, and this other game coming out of nowhere as well, which was called Beyond the Ice Palace 2. So I'm gonna obviously go through and see how much the first one costs. It might be a game that I play right away once this super PC is fully set up. I put it on pause for these shows because there's only so much time I have in a week, and then I'll get back to the PC stuff later, and then the content creation is gonna follow that. But yeah, 6.5. Yeah.
As of now, I have 2 that I think I have to relook at my full list. But for me right now, it's Astrobot and Wizard of Legend 2. And
yeah,
this is where I couldn't give, and this is my reason of why neither of these shows could even make it to an 8 out of 10. So it's an overall critique from these two. Outside of Wizard of Legend 2, which to be honest is probably just because I played Wizard of Legend 1. But besides that game, I feel like without taking notes, if I had just watched the show,
yeah,
once we got to the end, any game that I would have wanted to wish list, I would have forgot the name of.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I feel like a lot of them, despite being really good looking for some of them, nothing for me really stood out as like a, oh my god, I need to get that. Like right now,
Yeah.
my only game this year that it's like a, oh my god, I need to get is Astrobot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
despite these, and again, I had a list of 8 for each show, and they look good. But like even for some of them, just typing it up so I had my list out, so I remembered everything. Some of them like I couldn't get the spelling right, and my Google didn't know what I wanted and everything.
Right.
But it's like for a lot of these, I do feel like maybe you could also argue ukulele, but again, that's because of the first game, ukulele. So I feel like for a lot of these, especially for the new ones, there still wasn't anything that really made me like, oh, I need it. Which is why like originally it was like, this the Gorilla Game Show was like really really good, but I can't get it to that B level because I don't think there's still things that are at least not 100% memorable.
Yeah, and I know this might sound messed up, but for Yuka Replay, like I do know Epic Games gave away the other games. I almost feel like
Yeah,
if it's going to be a remake, you almost want to just let them give this one away too.
yeah.
But yeah, because that's kind of like when confirming that makes me want to do that instead of just actually buying it. Now don't get me wrong. If they make a actual sequel, then I'll definitely be one of the people there to get it. But yeah, definitely a much better show than the other show. But the problem with this is that these are just 2 shows out of the rest of them, and we're talking already like 6 hours, basically.
Yep.
Possibly 6.5 to 7, and it's like this is 2 shows, so that's kind of crazy. But let me get through my middle of the show stuff, and then we'll finish off because after this is not really that much more. But shout out to the middle of the show. Normally in the middle of the show, I do what we call the unofficial sponsor because they have not given us a paycheck yet, which is okay. We forgive them. We're available. Somebody hit up the email. Let's talk. But anyways, Epic Games is one of the platforms that gives away games free every week. Sometimes it's multiple games. I don't know if they've done 3 in one. Well, yeah, they have when they've done a collection at one point. But a lot of times they do 2 games, and then sometimes they do 1 game, and every now and then they do a game that you could argue is a bigger game. And I'm on the fence on whether this one is like that much bigger, but it is bigger. We have to agree. You think this is?
I think it is. This is actually
It's
to
newer.
me a very underrated gem of last year or year before when it came out. And this was actually one of my favorite games that I've played this year.
Right.
I
So
played
this
it in
is
this year.
so it's Marvel Midnight Suns. It was a game that had I don't want to say high marketing, but I want to say the marketing may have been what cost the game its.
I think it had the Avengers stink still.
I think that too. I think initially though that one initial CGI trailer threw everybody off though, because they thought probably it was going to be a game where you're doing some sort of action adventure,
Oh yeah.
and then it was just like bam, it's a card game,
So
and then
I will
probably
say,
yeah.
for people that are like a little interested about it, it's not necessarily a card game.
Mm-hmm.
It is a turn-based game. Where the cards come into play is sort of like a deck builder, but where this works is as you're trying to do stuff, you can't just keep spamming the same move over and over in your turn-based combat just because that's the good move. It's basically like you have a set of cards and it's like, here's the 5 moves that you can do this turn, pick 3. Like, that's the short version of it. Then there's other things you could do to do extra or things like that. But it's really just like, here's 5 options, pick 3. How are you about to win this fight? Go. Which can make it challenging as well. And I think the gameplay was really, really fun. This is a game I think everyone should give a chance to. And I think, like I said, the last time I talked about it, I think the way this game is set up balances the argument of like, well, why would I use like Iron Man or why would I use Magic or this character when Hulk is available? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, 'cause you think Hulk could just take them all out and the game over. Why would I use these other ones? And it's like, well, because of the card management, the power management, right? You can't just use Hulk. You need some support. Like, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then they do like injury statuses, so you can't just like spam using Wolverine in every fight or Blade in every fight, even though they're top tier. So like, I just think it's done really well. I cannot praise this game enough. To the point where, like I said, it was like my PlayStation Extra was expiring, and it's like, well, do I just rush this game and finish it in a week, or do I want to play the DLC? And I just went and just bought the game and got the DLC and took my time with it.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's I think this one is fully multiplayer as well, which would include the Switch.
Yeah.
Um and so for Epic Games, they're making it available now as of this recording until June 13th. So it's something you want to definitely go in there and claim. This is definitely something that if you were on the fence of having an Epic Games profile, well, they're giving you what could be considered a hidden gem. I think at the end of the day, it might be a hidden gem going forward
Yeah.
because it kind of flopped, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, and for
this
those
is
that don't
new.
know, it is
Yeah.
made by Firaxis. And these are people who made the XCOM, the XCOM games, and the XCOM is one of like when people talk about a top tier turn based game, XCOM is in that argument. Like, it's like one of the best, if not the best.
Okay.
They know what they're doing for turn based stuff.
All right. I do want to mention so from June 13th to June 20th, they it looks like they're stopping the mystery game thing, and they're telling you ahead of time again. It's kind of random how they're doing things, but it's just I'm going with it because free is free at the end of the day. But from June 13th to June 20th, the game that they have that's going to be is two games that's going to be made free. One of them was Idol Champions of the Forgotten Realms, and then the next one is actually called Red Out 2. That one I think I bought somewhere. I may have bought that on PlayStation, but
That's the racing one, right?
yeah, it's like it almost looks like you have that vehicle that Dark Vader had as a kid in the first Star Wars film, something like that, but just like all colorful and stuff, and you race that thing.
Yeah.
It's something like that. But yeah, so those games are going to be made free, and I'm going to definitely claim them. And I think Red Out, I'm pretty sure I bought but just didn't play. It's just like one of those things. Because that one was like on sale for a long time somewhere. I'm pretty sure it was PlayStation's eShop. But yeah, so that's it for that. As far as sales, I don't have too many things. I did just want to mention a couple things though. That's a little bit that I haven't really touched on in a while, but I mentioned earlier today about the mini Game Boys. I just wanted to give some praise to the company Ambernick. They made the one Game Boy that was called the RG35XX. It seems like right now their SP version, so it's called RG35XX SP. It seems to be on fire in the emulation crowd. Just from making it look like it's a XP instead of a regular Game Boy. All it does is just fold in, and it's a hot selling thing right now. They're making a lot of money. It's still in the $60 range. I think it's $64.99, so it went up a little bit from what the original games was or system was. But other than that, it's still doing relatively the same emulation as before, which is pretty much everything leading up to PlayStation 1, excluding the N64. Should be playable on the devices. You can find it under ambernic.com. That's ANBERNIC.com, or keepretro.com if you're looking for something like that. The other devices are still there if you just want the regular one. But this one, I think the other highlight for it, I want to say, is it has 8-hour battery life, where I believe the devices before is almost in a 6-hour range. So they've improved it. Yeah, it's dope. It's dope. It has those like Nintendo see-through colors too, that you would know from some of the original Game Boy colors and everything. And it's like it folds in. It's not something I think that I would get. I got way too many devices that kind of do the same thing. And I'm cool with what I have. I don't necessarily need the gimmick where you fold it, but if somebody's into that, that's how you get to it. And it's selling like hotcakes, but it is available. It's not like, like the PS5 or Series X or nothing. It came out available. I do also want to mention real quick in this segment, the Playdate. I wanted to follow that up with that because I remember initially when I first talked about the Playdate, that's how I found these things. But the Playdate is not necessarily going to be showing up in any fashion during these shows. However, they released some numbers that I thought was interesting. I thought I might want to mention. So they have a sale for their anniversary of the machine being released, where if you go on the Playdate's eShop, a lot of the games are hovering around $4.50 right now. And then also apparently the developers for the Playdate as a whole has earned over $544,000, which goes directly to them. And there's no overhead, there's no investor crap. It's just literally is going directly to developers. And it's funny, we got to put some respect on Playdate's name because the money's going to the developers. Support the developers, right? They got the most exclusives, right? And we don't hear a lot of the problems coming from them. They're not jumping out the gate with a bunch of live service games and none of that, and still at the end of the day my co-host refuses to buy it after I tell you all about that. I'm just playing.
Hold on. You have one.
All right, moving on.
Okay.
Moving on. I do also want to mention for Nintendo, put some respect on Nintendo's system, even though I mentioned it before. Paper Mario 1000 Year Door. I think that's going to be a game that I'm going to use my Epic Games $5 off of their membership. Not Epic Games. GameStop. I had it in my head and mentioned Epic Games. I'm gonna use that and buy that. I think it is a nice upgrade from the GameCube version from what I was seeing. Not too much better. It's just a little bit more polished looking, and it's on a up to date hardware. Unless you want to be one of them scumbags out there and put it on a Steam Deck, support the developers. Nintendo will come after you. There's plenty of proof of this if you don't buy it. So yeah, I'm going to get that sometime this month as my June month thing, and then add my own discount on the back end from my cards to really knock that price down. I do want to mention, I think this is funny. I'll mention this as the last thing in this segment. Apparently, I lost the Steam Deck again. I'm trying to find it. I have not found it. It's kind of messed up because this time around I had Persona 4 Golden going on in there, and I kind of do want to, if I'm just like really taking a break from Bloodborne, I kind of want to pick that up, but I lost it. I can't find it. I do know where the my ROG Ally is that we're gonna get to later on, but it's currently lost. It's still in here. I know I'm gonna find it. It's been lost for almost a week now, but hopefully I'll find it by next week. I'll update y'all. I know it's like a tongue-in-cheek thing, like every now and then. If you're a long-term viewer, if you are, thank you. Hit the like button, subscribe, tell a friend. But yes, I lost the Steam Deck again. I don't know where it's at. I was tearing this place up trying to find it, but it's gonna show up eventually. It's gonna show up. Okay, last thing before my last segment that I want to mention. So for the gaming shows, the recap, I want to just recap the actual like schedule. So we're technically 3 shows in if you count the PlayStation show, even though it's not on my official list. But so tomorrow, very early in the morning, I'm gonna be at work. You probably gonna be at work. So I should have wrote down these time frames because it's still showing the PDT time, which they're saying Los Angeles time. But
Plus 3 hours.
so 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for everybody is going to be the accessibility showcase. Maybe we'll tread lightly on our grading on this. But no, equal opportunity, right? We're gonna trash you if you. All right, so that's gonna be tomorrow, and then actually no, that's so yes, it's tomorrow, but that's one of like 5 shows. So I thought this was Saturday. It's actually June Friday. 7th. Yep, the big show after that, the real big show, is the Summer Games Fest. This one is going to be 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Following it immediately will be the Day of the Devs. I expect that one to be a little bit more talking. I'm not going to grade them too hard on talking. I think it's going to be more developers talking about the games that showed off on the Summer Games Fest, right? Yeah. Right after that is going to be the Developer Direct, which I'm not sure if it's connected to like Day of the Devs kind of thing, but it's going to be like literally right after that, like 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
It's not Developer Direct, it's Devolver Direct.
Devolver Direct, my bad. I looked at it wrong.
That's okay. I thought it said Developer this whole time too. But yeah,
so on all the shows, because I want to mention this format with you live and with the people. I think we're going to take a couple more liberties for Summer Games Fest. I know that might be biased, but let's be honest. Everything's going to show up there. But what I think we should do for the rest of the shows, because almost everything else that I'm going to mention, we're going to cover all in 1 week, which is almost impossible because we went over an hour off of 2 shows. And I'm very aware of our time. We got about 20-something minutes here. We're going to get done in time. But 20-something minutes of the footage. But what we're going to probably do is we'll give Summer Games Fest its time a little bit, but the accessibility and everything after that for that day, and then most of what's going on after that, what we're going to do, well, maybe I should mention Summer Games Fest and the Xbox Game Showcase. We're going to give a little bit more leeway for. Everything else, I think, because of how long this is going to be, we probably should say, here is our top 3 games that is on our wish list that we will talk about. The rest we'll just have to list. It's kind of going to be that kind of thing, unfortunately. I wish we could sit there and talk about all of it, but we would have a 4-hour show, probably a 5-hour show. So we should probably do that. For our good and our bad, we got to mention the top bad, just one thing. Top good, just one thing. And then we will grade it, and then we'll talk about the pace, the opening, and the closing probably the same way. But we will probably have to cut that down to just the top 3 for one, and then just the top thing of the good and the bad. Would you agree with that, or you have a better idea?
No, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, because right after that, going into the very next day, June 8th, at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Wholesome Direct, followed by the Future Game Show, which is going to be later on in that afternoon. I want to say that's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I expected the Future Game Show to have some cool indie games and be similar to what Guerrilla Collective is, but we're going to have to cut it short, unfortunately. I think we might give a little bit more leeway to Xbox, but the PC Game Show we're going to probably cut short with our other format as well. Ubisoft the same way. Nintendo, funny enough, we might cut that short too, unless they mention some Switch 2 stuff. If they don't mention Switch 2 stuff, it's going to be Ports Central. We're going to have to cut that short. Black Voices in Gaming still doesn't have a confirmed showcase, but It's gonna be the same way.
For
Uh-huh.
PC game show,
Mm-hmm.
isn't that usually more like the
Skits.
PC like not just skits, but also like material? Like here's this new like chip, and here's this new keyboard. Like I
Yeah,
feel
they
like
still do
so
things where it's
many of
just
the
like,
other shows are already PC games that you don't need a
mm-hmm.
separate game.
They advertise a lot of pre-builts on that show. They try to give away one pre-built for the show, a very very high end PC, and they give away like one little thing where it's like, here's this very expensive keyboard, here's this very expensive like mouse. They do that kind of thing, and they have their skits
Yeah,
and stuff. And yeah, it's going to be a lot that's going to impact us by the time we get to the next week. And so even with all of these titles, it's like if we even give it 15 minutes per show, I think we would still somewhat get close or past 2 hours. So I'm gonna try to figure that out. It's possible,
should we
maybe
split
the
it
way
amongst
we,
2 separate weeks? So like
y-
the next one is more focused on the Summer Games Fest. The week after is focused more on Xbox.
um, that's a good question because I,
Or
I,
because Summer Games Fest and Xbox are the big ones, if the next show is focused really just on Summer Games Fest and Xbox, and the week after is all of the other shows,
yeah,
right?
we could probably do that. That might be an idea. We can work on it as time goes on, but I also think, didn't we have some scheduling conflicts that we would have to probably talk about off air? Um,
Oh yeah, but yeah, we can talk about that off air.
yeah, but
What is
I
that? two
just
weeks?
think we
Yeah.
we will just have to figure it out. But honestly, it would probably work itself out if we didn't have that many things to talk about. But I know for a fact Summer Games Fest is just going to be the number one, which
Yeah.
might take like 30 plus minutes in its own right. We'll figure it out. I don't know. It might be an idea where we might double dip. Like, remember when we were double dipping, but we just like record two episodes that go out right away. That might
Oh
be an
yeah.
idea. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I just know it's going to be very taxing on me, and I'm still going to keep the pressure on, and I'm still going to work. But yeah. So that's we plan for this. I hope next year, which is no point in hoping that they figure out a better way to do this, but they're not. But yeah, our footage. See, we went so long as it is. We got one more thing that I just wanted to mention. This is going to be real quick though. Which is just basically the information regarding the ROG Ally, which is going to be called the Ally X or ROG Ally X. So have you seen this device? I think I did show
Yeah.
you it though.
Yep. I've seen some
So
stuff.
this version is going to be black, right? And it is said to be a little bit like ever so slightly thicker and heavier is what I'm hearing. Um, but it has some bigger specs in there. Most notably, the battery has been improved. That was the biggest flaw from the white version, the 1.0 version. And then they're adding on about 8 gigs more RAM. So that's going to be the big thing here. But to go down the list, so this thing is listed at we got the price for it. It's going to be $799.99. So it's going to be an $800 machine. And the 1080p gaming is with 120 hertz. It was like that before, but they're like really emphasizing it a little bit more now, where it should do that with some of the bigger, like the bigger titles, some of the AAA titles, and not just like the indie stuff. It will have a full terabyte hard drive on there, or at least full terabyte memory space, right? Same processor that we've seen before, same screen that was on the other machine. Interesting though is it's supposed to have 24% more cooling. But I will mention for myself, I've actually never had an issue with this thing overheating at all. It can get warm in certain spots and stuff, but I actually thought it was pretty fine for what I played. But at the same time, I didn't play the most demanding stuff on it because it was still a handheld to me. I still, at the end of the day, feel like you don't really need to play the most demanding stuff on this type of machine, which I kind of feel like the Steam Deck is in the same category. But a lot of people, that's why they buy it. I just don't think it's for that. But just to keep in mind when I say I didn't have any overheating or anything, but the new one's going to be 24% more. They moved the SD card to a different spot on this machine for the vents and everything, for the cooling. Interesting enough, though, this might be a game changer for some people. They partnered with a mod company that I did not write down, but basically the system is mod ready, where my version is not. So if you are somebody who's saying, I want to swap the sticks out, I want to swap out the D-pad, I want different buttons, and they're all of that type of stuff. They got a company that's going to come out with official, like, different pieces and stuff where you can order from them, take this thing apart, and just do mods on it on your own. Which they're very aware of their PC crowd that wants that type of thing, I guess. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So you can have, different variety of the buttons. However, on the base model, I believe there is a different D-pad than the ones before, and the buttons are slightly thicker than the ones I had. I believe on this machine, the triggers are actually bigger as well, and they made the back buttons smaller, slightly smaller, basically. So there's a lot of aesthetic changes here where at a quick glance you probably wouldn't see it, but if you put them next to each other, then you'd see it. But I'm not sure too many people who would do that unless you just watch somebody's like review video, right? So they're still listing this thing in the stores at Best Buy. So I do appreciate that there is a place where you can go right in and just get it. When I got mine, I walked right in, got it, and left. I will give them praise every day for that, because what we just saw with the main consoles this generation was atrocious. Basically, you couldn't get the system for years, and we know all that noise. So you can pre-order this at Best Buy. The due date, this is coming out right around the corner. It will be releasing this June 22nd. So just before the tail end of this month. And yeah, it's $799.99, right? $800 machine. From all the research that I've done, to make a long story short, if you already have a ROG Ally, the changes are nice, but it's not enough for you to upgrade. Because one of the things is you can buy a bigger storage space and do the upgrade yourself. I've seen tutorials on that. I don't feel the need to do that because I got a million devices as it is. So 500 gigabytes is good enough for me. But if you wanted to, you can do your own upgrade for the 1 terabyte. You already had the same screen, and you have the 1080p 120, and then there's also the thing that they didn't really mention, which is like that external graphics card or something that you hook to this to like and put it on the TV and just make it like a portable PC powerhouse or something if you really wanted to do all of that. I figure at that point just go ahead and get a regular tower. But if you already have it, I don't think it's worth making the upgrade. If you don't, I think this might be worth it, might be worth the extra investment. But if you still are cutting corners here and there, mainly just price, because an $800 machine is kind of a lot for a lot of people. There's nothing wrong with getting the white version, which I believe should be around $600 right now. The biggest selling point for this thing compared to the other thing was the battery. But I think that you got to really ask yourself, how many situations are you going to be in where you're out and about playing this long term without your plug, you know? I feel like a lot of people are going to get majority of their play with this in their actual home, and you're going to have this hooked to the plug anyway. Once you hook this to the plug, I mean, you have unlimited, play at that point, right? Anybody out there that was like wanting the PlayStation Portal for its features, I can confirm for you the ROG Ally does the exact same thing. If you just want something that was doing that and more, the ROG Ally does the same thing. So if the white one does it, I'm pretty sure the black one does it as well. And then you have access to the other systems, mainly the Xbox, legally on this machine, and then yes, illegally you have a way to play some Nintendo stuff. So yeah, your thoughts on this machine? You don't have this yet, but your thoughts?
I don't think I'd get the upgraded one. I'd probably get the first one, just for price wise, like it's cheaper.
Okay.
And I don't think I'd be playing it like out of the house that much, so I'm not going to be that far from the charger, so I'll be okay.
Okay.
If you know you're going to be far from a charger, like there are people who are like mobile gamers and just be out and about, go for the one with the better battery. But I think the ROG Ally is the one, like if you want a handheld that's not the Switch, I think that is your best, the ROG is your best option.
Yeah. And then we're gonna get out of here in a second, but I do want to mention one thing. So I know someone that I have like side conversations with at work, that he started off wanting the PlayStation Portal, right? I told him you can consider this machine, the ROG Ally, the white one, because it's going to do that and it's going to do a whole bunch of PC stuff. He was looking for something to, I guess he may have like some travel issues or whatever, or not issues, but basically he don't got his own car. Somebody picks him up, but they pick him up like a little bit later. And so he told me he was looking for something that could keep him busy while he's waiting for his ride. I I kind of told him that even though this is a cool investment and a machine to have, I actually told him for that particular place where we are at, you don't want to be in a situation where you could damage that machine or drop it or something out there. You're better off getting, funny enough, one of these Game Boys that I've mentioned in the past, because it's not something you really need to save up for. It's about $60-$70. And you could put all the games on there. That's more suitable for if you're going to be at work waiting for your ride, because it's less attention. You don't have to worry about possible theft or something. You just slip it right in your pocket. I kind of feel like for a lot of people, when you're talking about being outside, out and about, it kind of is the same thing. I just can't think of a situation where somebody's going to be able to like really mobilely carry this all over the place. Because now we're talking about this one being like thicker and more heavier, right?
I know somebody who traveled with their PlayStation 4 Slim everywhere, like a golden one in their back. Like people will find a way if they want.
Yeah, it's just like, but it's like, can you really take that and pull it out while you're in a store or something? Or can you really, you can't do that in like a Walmart. You can't do that like if you was at the mall or something.
No,
like you could probably pull out the other thing out of your pocket, but you can't pull a ROG out of your pocket. You definitely can't pull a Switch, or not a Switch. Not the Switch. I meant to say the PS5 Slim. Like,
but I've also seen people like they have their bag and then they like pull it out wherever they are, like especially people who like heavily take a bus and like.
Now that's a good example though. I feel like that's dangerous.
Oh, for sure. I've seen people do it though. Like,
yeah,
dangerous, but I've seen people straight up do that, or if they know they're going to be out and about all day, they bring it with them. Like I've seen it happen, especially
Yeah,
or I got to go to the doctor's office, so I'm bringing it, or I got to go to the Secretary of State, so I'm bringing it.
yeah. Secretary of State, I can understand a little bit. I feel like it's a little too much of an attention grabber for certain places like Secretary of State.
I
But at the
agree.
same time, I would not be at no bus stop with no $800 machine, no $600 machine. I wouldn't.
I personally agree, but I've seen it happen.
Yeah. Now, a $60 little machine, I can. There's no big of a deal. It would suck. You might lose some gameplay, some save files for a second, but you could quickly get that back. You break it, you can quickly get another one. You know what I mean? It's not the same as like a $700 machine.
Well, I'm not judging what
Um,
other people do. Like it's weird, but I've seen it happen. So
Yeah, I think the footage is done, so we could probably wrap this up now. That was the last thing on the agenda. The next week we're gonna figure it out, but I think we're gonna probably be a little bit more rapid fast with that, and we'll talk more about it afterwards. But yeah, the footage restarted. That's all right. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We at the end of the show. We will catch you next week. I'm pretty sure that's gonna be a very big week for the episode, and then afterwards I promise you I'm gonna have that PC up and running fully so I can make transitions to have like everything ported over there, and then you'll get more content out of me on a regular basis. So bear with me. I'm a jump start this channel in a second, but yep, like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you later. Peace.